Hamilton had its own summer colony, like Jewish colony.
Before they started going north.
Yeah, down on the beach strip. And there were many people who owned cottages down there. And then, of course, there were rentals too, so that often during the summer, I mean, it was so convenient, you know. People would go down there, families, they'd own a cottage or rent a cottage. And some of the, like the Levies, and I'm not sure whether the Goldblatts had a cottage there, I believe they did. These were huge Victorian cottages with big verandas and all kinds of gingerbread, you know. And they weren't all that way, but there were a few like that. And there was an entertainment center there too, with a ballroom where the big bands used to come. And that was a great center, of course. Besides which, even if we didn't have a cottage there, we knew somebody who did. And I remember going down to visit the Wassermans, Marv Wasserman and Bernie Wasserman at their cottage. And we would go out on the beach. We'd have bonfires at night. And we would listen to the pop music.
And folks also rented a cottage.
Yes, they did, yeah. But, you know, connecting music, because, you know, music is very important. The music of that day, the big tunes, as I remember, were Chattanooga Choo Choo, you probably know, and Kalamazoo, you know? Does that ring a bell?
Sure, I've heard
I'd sing it for you, but my voice is going. But it was great fun, you know, you go down there, we could ride down on our bikes, you know, because it was not that far. And as I say, my parents would rent a cottage there occasionally. So that became quite popular for a while.
And then everybody used to go up to Muskoka to Muskoka Lodge.
Oh yeah, that's another thing. You probably know something about this. No? Muskoka Lodge was a beautiful resort.
Muskoka
Yeah.
Lodge in the summer.
Well, this is not everybody. This is the elite, Molly. On Mary Lake, yes. This is a beautiful rambling resort of various buildings. And there was a main lodge, and there were little paths and stairways running between them. And wonderful, God, they'd have a couple of weeks that were really what all the Hamilton people would go at the same time. And one of whom was Frank Goldblatt with his family. And the Wonders and
The
Netkins, yes. It was the memories of that place are terrific, because the Bubes, I know Mo Bube actually lived up that way at the time. He lived in Aurelia. Mo and Sadie Bube. They eventually came down and to live in Hamilton with their daughter Liba, who is now my sister-in-law. But they had an entertainment thing going every night.
A miniature Catskills where every night
Right.
there was another building where they had a show every night.
That's right.
And everybody had to go, you know.
Now, Lou Jacoby is a name that a lot of people will recognize. He was a comedian, and he was there in the summers. But he eventually ended up in Hollywood, and he became quite I guess, bit part, not a bit part, but a supporting actor player, you know. But he was a very funny man. So that was another facet, you know, the Hamilton elite would move up to Muskoka Lodge in the summer. There was another lodge as well that was in Gravenhurst. And the name of it just escapes me for the moment. But picture this. There was a championship fight
We were there.
that was going to take place in the fall. Each of these lodges was the training camp for one of the fighters. And one of them was a Canadian boy, and the other he was a champion, a heavyweight champion, and the name escapes me. But they would have rings set up outside.
Watch them practice.
Were any of the fighters Jewish?
Don't think so. No.
Because there were some very famous Jewish.
Well, Max Baer, yeah.
Max Baer, but in Canada there was a guy, Sammy Lovespring.
There was another one too, but I don't recognize the Lovespring name. But at any rate, you can imagine the people were going back and forth to make bets, and there was all these hangers-on from the fight game, who would come with their fighters, and they'd, be,
Big excitement.
you know what it's like. So that was very exciting. And they had horseback riding, and they had boats, and they had canoeing. And the proprietor of Muskoka Lodge was a couple named Ginsberg. And one of the family was mayor of Huntsville. And the wife was a very elegant, blonde woman, who really ran the place. Her husband was a handsome man who flew a plane, and he kept it down there, a float plane. So there was always excitement, he'd be taking people up in the plane. And meanwhile, she was running the business. And meanwhile, and then there was a stable. The whole thing was a very complete resort. The Chicken Roost was a gathering place for Hamilton. And that's not restricted to Jewish Hamilton, but to pretty well anybody who ever came downtown. It was just a destination. Although Max Mintz based his business on chicken on a bun, which was the most sort of egalitarian dish on the menu, he was prepared to make just about anything you wanted. And if he had a customer who requested a certain dish, he'd make it for him. His real pièce de résistance was the shrimp and lobster salad. And this salad had big chunks of shrimp and lobster and a wonderful dressing that he later on, even when he closed his business, he used to sell it, perhaps still does, I don't know. He bottled it and sold it. But my personal experience is my friend Saul Eisenberg and myself on Thursday nights would go into the Chicken Roost. We'd order a huge shrimp and lobster salad, and this was not only a routine, but something we would look forward to all week. Besides the lunch business, the dinner business that he did, he had a little room in the back, which was reserved for very special customers. And one of the ones who was a regular there was Morgan Firestone, who was and still is, quite a philanthropist, member of the Firestone family. And this was, I believe, his favorite place to eat in Hamilton too. And Max would go all out to make sure that he had wonderful dishes for him. The washrooms were downstairs, and there was a stairway that the steps were made of white pine, as I remember it. And he was so proud of those steps. Just about any time you'd go in, there'd be somebody there washing those steps. They weren't covered with varnish or anything. They were just the plain white pine, but he was very proud of those white pine steps.
Can you describe what the Chicken Roost looked like for someone who was never there? Can you just describe?
Okay. It was sort of made up of two stores. One side was booths, the other side was tables. And the booths all had these cartoon type of, well, more or less in every booth, the little cartoons having to do with chickens, and usually, sort of on a risque side. And but the same cartoons stayed there for years, so I mean, nobody really paid much attention to them after a while. But everything was a sort of a tradition there. Even the staff, I don't think the staff varied very much, because he had waitresses there, and his right-hand man, what was his name? Dave, who was there for years. And of course, you can't mention the Chicken Roost without mentioning their catering division, because anybody who had a simcha, wedding, bar mitzvah, whatever, would always bring in Max. And his daughter eventually took over the catering division, and Dave was always there. But they could create anything that you saw in California or New York. He'd be able to do it.
So it was a real center for the business community, all the business community would go there for lunch every day?
Oh yes, and I mean, by and large, there was waiting room only. You'd have to wait to get a booth or a table, because it was such a popular place. It wasn't just, as I say, it was everybody. Young people going to school would go in there after school. It was a hangout for the whole town, When he left, and he sold out the business, and everybody said to him, Max, and I guess this must have been, I don't know, early 90s, I'm not sure. Maybe 80s. But everybody said, Max, how can you, sell out everything? You're doing so well there. He says, there comes a time when you have to know when to leave. And he was so right, because it was a turning point where the downtown began to deteriorate. Yeah.